This is a breaking news alert from 24-Hour News 8.
Good morning. We're continuing our breaking coverage of a crane collapse at the Kent County Jail. Let's go straight out to Joe LaFurgey, who's following this situation on the scene. Joe?
Right, I wanted to show you some of our first live pictures from the scene here at this collapse at the Kent County Jail. I'm going to step out of the way and show you that crane just behind me. You can see that crane. It appeared to have collapsed back on itself. You know, most cranes can fold their arms, and it appears it folded back onto itself onto that building. The good news here is it appears there is only one injury, and it appears that injury is minor to a construction worker. Still, they have evacuated much of the administrative end of the Kent County Corrections Complex, the jail complex here. We understand the inmates are okay, but some of the Sheriff's Department employees have been told to get out, and here's why. When that crane collapsed, it not only spread quite a bit of debris over here, but it also created an unsteady building, if you will, unstable buildings. And anytime they have that sort of situation, they have to be very, very careful at the way they pick at the debris, they pick at the damage to get it out of there and try to start removing it. So what they're doing right now is all the different rescue crews, the technical rescue crews and the fire department are meeting. They're kind of mapping out a plan. They know nobody's in there. They're pretty sure nobody's in there. Even if there was, they would have to be very careful to get inside because of that collapse danger. So they're being very, very careful about that. They will be very precautious throughout the morning. But again, the good news is here, it doesn't appear we had any major injuries. There's a news conference going on right now just across the street. We are listening in on that news conference. We will have an update for you in about an hour right here on 24-Hour News 8. Right now, live in Grand Rapids, Joe LaFurgey, 24-Hour News 8.
All right, thank you so much, Joe. Of course, we are continuing to monitor that news conference that's about to begin at any point here. This is Undersheriff John Hess, who's standing by, waiting for everybody to get their live shots established and prepared for this. Let's go ahead and listen in here shortly as he is going to give us an idea and apprise us on what's happened here at the Kent County Jail. Once again, we've got a crane that collapsed in the area. Let's listen in.
John Hess from the Kent County Sheriff's this morning. About 9 o'clock this morning, during construction in the new portion of the Kent County Correctional Facility, we had a crane, the main crane that we've been using, fell over or collapsed into the new construction of the building. Immediately, we evacuated the area. Our initial concern was any danger to the community surrounding area and the employees in our building as well as employees in the construction site. I'm happy to report that there are no major injuries to any of the employees either working at the construction site or in our building. One worker was taken to the hospital for what I believe are minor injuries. 2 inmate trustees that were working in the garage area have also been taken to the hospital with minor injuries. The area was secured. We checked to make sure there were no gas leaks, no electrical problems, anything that would cause us to evacuate the jail, the surrounding neighborhood areas. We were quickly to be able to determine that those safety issues were not a concern. So very fortunately, this came out as best as it could as far as that goes. Right now, we're in the process of determining what structural damage is there, what other areas in our facility that may have to be shut down as a concern for the building, and that's really where we're at right now.
How did you deal with all of the inmates? Was there a point where you had to consider evacuating, or?
The old portion of the jail, the 1950s, 1960 area, is the only area that lost power. We have an extensive plan in place where we locked down the facility. And the first thing we did was make sure that there were no concerns about an explosion of a gas tank or anything that would require a evacuation. The chief probably could talk about that, but as they told us, it's an open air environment. So if there was a compromise to one of the gas tanks, that's the type of environment I guess would be best as the gas is going out into the air.
No, there's some talk of an evacuation. Was there an evacuation?
There was not an evacuation, no. The evacuation of the main sheriff's office, the workers, the garage area. The crane did fall on the 1956 area, the area where our carport is, our garage workers are, our radio workers. We did evacuate that area right away. Of course, those employees, when the crane hit the building, ran from the building. I think that's how the trustees got the glass in their eyes and their ears and so forth.
How did it collapse?
That's something that we're going to investigate from here. That's where we go from here now. The area is safe, it's secured. we'll work with the construction company. I'm sure the federal agencies will come out and do an inspection, and we'll have to determine that. We don't know that at this point.
But
our first concern is the safety of everybody.
But the main jail was not compromised at all?
The main jail was not compromised. We lost power in the 50s, 60s. The crane hit the new construction and the old garage area from 1956, not the jail.
Do you have any idea how many people were in that area when that crane collapsed?
In the working area of our part, probably less than 10. We've had up to 100 construction workers because of the good weather getting ahead on the project. I do not have a count, but I would say 50 or 60 probably today.
Well, what does it sound like? Could you actually hear it from your office?
I was in an office meeting, and all of a sudden the power went out, and then there was a large crash. We all looked at each other, and we knew immediately it was the crane. That was the biggest thing there. It's been going there. We just knew that crane has been working continuously for the last weeks, getting concrete, structures for the jail, windows and stuff up there. So we just knew from the sound of it and everything. And fortunately, again, nobody was seriously hurt.
Do you know what company was involved with that crane?
OAK is our construction company. I do not know where the crane originated from.
How far along is this project? When's it going to be finished?
This project was set to be done in 2013, the beginning of 2013. We were probably 10 weeks behind for various reasons as any construction project goes along, but we were making some great headway with the weather and getting a lot of the brick done. One of the concerns was we do have gas heaters in there to dry up the mortar inside this time of year because we've been doing a lot of concrete. So that was one of the concerns we had first initially, to check on those things. I do not know what this will do to the project. Again, those are all things we're going to have to evaluate as we go from here today.
But presumably set it back sometime.
Oh, it has to have set it back. There's no doubt about that. Right now, we need to look at the building itself, the structure, the walls, make sure they're safe, what damage is done. I don't believe, certainly checked, that there's any concern now for the main jail as far as the structure collapsing into the main jail. The jail is locked down right now. We're going to keep it that way until we can identify those type things, but there is no reason to be concerned about anybody that's in the jail that I'm worried about right now for safety.
Did you mention what the crane was doing when it collapsed? Was it doing stuff, or was it just kind of sitting there?
The crane has been continuously moving concrete over into the main building so they can pour floors, do whatever bricklaying they need to do. Large windows and frames for the new jail, which are very heavy. It's been lifting those. It hasn't been uncommon for Hess to have 2 or 3 cranes back there during this construction period. This most recently has been the largest crane that has been there for several months.
And there's no, there had been no concern that, you said they were trying to get ahead of the game here, no concern that maybe in mid-February they shouldn't be working harder because of weather conditions?
No. So that's where we're at right now. I don't know if the fire chief has anything to add. His people went in and did the sweep and did the check. We'll do an update later on today as to any structural damages or anything further than that. But right now it's to, I guess, make sure everything's safe before we go any further.
Yeah, Jerry, pretty bad in there? I mean, what did it look like when you went there? What your people did?
When my people went in there, obviously there's quite a bit of damage to the structure. It was a 250-foot crane that fell into the building. Our basic concern was to make sure that everybody was out of the area, to make sure that anybody that was wounded or injured was taken care of. It sounded like we had 1 walking wounded from the construction crew and 2 trustees from the jail. Basically, we re-reconned the building, made sure everybody was evacuated, secured, made sure that electrical, gas, and those things were secured. There's some propane tanks in there that we wanted to make sure that weren't leaking. That was all taken care of. The jail personnel did a wonderful job in evacuating the parts of the structures that needed to be evacuated. All in all, this is a best case result for an accident of this type.
A lot of cranes in the last 10 years in the skyscape in Grand Rapids. Is this the kind of thing you guys train for, or maybe not so much?
Well, we actually train for confined space rescues, so yes, I mean, if something like this happens, it creates entrapments, confined spaces where people would be, and we had our confined space rescue people here.
I know one thing that you all want to do is get over there and get pictures and footage and so forth. So as we go back, that will be one of the first things I'll do. I'll check and see what is safe, and I will let somebody that is here know where you can go and where you can get those pictures and get closer. So if you want to do that, you'll need to stay here so that I'll let them know and get you over there. I just want to make sure it's safe for you to go over there, and then I don't have any problem going over there and at least getting up to the fence to take your pictures and stuff. So if you let me go back and do that, then I'll have somebody give you a holler.
Any indication at this point what went wrong with the crane?
No. Our initial response was obviously to respond to safety issues, and we'll go from there. Yeah.
The occupational safety people will be looking into that issue.
Yeah, so.
John, the garage is out of commission, I take it, at this point.
Yeah, that's the car garage. That's our gas pumps. That's where we repair cars. That's our radio service area. Again, that was all checked, but yeah, it's out of service right now.
So we can call you later this afternoon.
Absolutely. Yep.
I'm terribly sorry. I should know your name, but I don't.
It's Jerry Salatka, Deputy Fire Chief.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll head back over there. And I'll have somebody, probably that officer, will let you know, and we'll get you over there. Okay? Thank you.
You've been listening into our live coverage here of a news conference that was going on nearby the Kent County Jail here. We heard from Undersheriff John Hess, as well as a battalion chief from the fire department at Grand Rapids Fire Department. But Joe LaFurgey has been out on scene since this happened around 9 o'clock this morning. You were listening into this, Joe. Do you have any thoughts?
I think Deputy Chief Jerry Salatka of the Grand Rapids Fire Department said it best. If something like this were to happen, it's fortunate that it happened in this way. 3 minor injuries, a couple of trustees and one of the workers here. And if you take a look at that, you can see what he was talking about. This could have been a major catastrophe. That thing came down. It missed the important parts of the building where a lot of people were inside. It didn't cause any secondary collapse of anything it hit on the way down. It didn't hit any of the things that could have set off secondary incidents like gas lines or anything like that. It pretty much stayed intact, and again, they only had the 3 minor injuries. We've seen these crane collapses before. They can obviously cause massive destruction, but they can cause a very serious loss of life, especially in a building where you have so many people working. They have hundreds of inmates. Obviously, in the other section of the newer section of the jail, they're all safe. By the way, the jail is in lockdown, as the Undersheriff said during the news conference. It'll remain in lockdown until they get some of the cleanup effort here. But then you've got all the other employees, the Sheriff's Department employees in the administrative section, just to the east of the Sheriff's Department, and really that's about the closest that crane came, and that was where a lot of the danger was. It fell right on top of a maintenance garage. It was built in the 1950s, and then onto the older section of the jail. And again, when something that heavy falls on it, you can imagine what it does to those old buildings and the foundation of them. The Undersheriff saying he was sitting in his office. They heard that thing bang, and as soon as they heard that, they knew what was going on. They knew that crane had collapsed. The emergency response was very effective and very quick over here. Within minutes, they had this whole area flooded with GRFD crews, especially technical rescue crews, to take a look at the situation. The Sheriff's Department, the command staff are all out here, and at one point, and I'm not sure if he said it remains this way or not, but they have actually evacuated the section of the Sheriff's Department administrative building as a precaution. Again, it's one thing when one of these things comes down and hits everything on the way, but the secondary, the chance for a secondary collapse, if you will, one of these buildings come down, a wall that was knocked off kilter coming down, that could cause an even bigger problem. So the reaction to get everybody here, to get everybody in that danger zone out, is credited to all the folks who were here today and heard all this going on. And again, as the Deputy Fire Chief said, they were extremely fortunate today. They're going to take a step back now. They're going to take a look at what they've got, this mess they've got, how to clean it up best, how to make sure they don't move something that causes, again, one of those secondary collapses and causes more problems. So it's still a precarious situation here, but a safe situation for the most part, in that none of the folks who were here when this thing happened were injured, at least any major injuries. We're talking some glass in the eyes from a couple of the trustees, some minor injuries. They described them all as walking wounded. And generally, when you hear that term, it means that your worst-case scenario has not been realized. That is definitely the situation here. Of course, a lot of questions still to be answered. Why the thing collapsed, what caused it to collapse, those will be answered in the days forward. But as of right now, the important information is that you've only had 3 minor injuries. No life-threatening injuries here. Everybody's out okay, and this turned out to be not that worst-case scenario. So we'll be back throughout the morning with more updates from the scene here too, Brett.
All right, thank you so much, Joe, for your coverage there from scene. Obviously, this is a very fortunate situation, as Joe was talking about. Just at the most, 3 people that were injured here. Some glass in the eyes and ears for some of those trustees. Trustees being people who are in the jail, incarcerated in some fashion, but are some of the more trusted individuals, and therefore they get to work outside of the complex in a lot of cases here. We, of course, will continue to follow this. You can find updates on this at all times at woodtv.com.